Hey guys, ¿cómo está? How's it going? Today I'm going to try to touch on a couple things here actually that I think are probably pretty important. They can be very personal, but I think hopefully this is, I don't care whether you're a lesbian, whether you're homosexual, I don't care whether you're, whether you're a new couple or whether you're single or whatever it is. We're all either men or have men in our lives, and this isn't just about, far from being just about sexual issues. This is about how to use the sexual power and that creation and creativity to find the higher parts in life. I just got back from dropping Macy's lunch off to her and telling everybody behind her back that it's her birthday to give her some well wishes. But I was listening on the way back. I'm kind of a rocker. I like all kinds of music. I like my Def Leppard and my old Iron Maiden and stuff like that, AC/DC, but I also like some of the softer views. So I was listening to Higher Love on the way back. So this is a little bit like that, So I mean, whether it's trying to find that higher self-love that is critical to good health and to good spirit, is to find the things in life that give you some peace and give you some strength and give you some discipline. So however the words come across, there's a great, I've really enjoyed some of her work lately, and her name is Rina Malik. She's a urologist, and she does some really great short videos on YouTube, and she's touched on a few things. So I'd like to come at it from not only a practitioner that's a holistic health practitioner for the last 20 years, 12 of it certified, but also as a practitioner of sexual transmutation and seminal retention. So again, if this gets you a little queasy and like, oh, whatever, please don't. I mean, this is all part of health. I mean, this is what God and nature created. The parts that you have on your body are gifts to not just exploit on your own or to think of as dirty. I mean, that's religious nonsense that people have to get over, that guilt and shame. You got to find the beauty in that creation. And whether anybody likes it or not, sperm is a huge part of that, So now we're going to try to touch on a couple things here, as kind of like I'll be talking to friends here. Hopefully I can do it. I'm pretty comfortable, so hopefully we can do this. And if you have any questions, towards the end, or, when we go on, you have a little, where I can touch on more, please don't feel afraid to do it. So this is for men and women alike, to, again, if it isn't something you can use for yourself, to offer for somebody else that's having issues, whatever they may be, maybe finding peace and learning how to meditate and learning how to take some of that energy and to move it up. Now, I'll try not to get into, again, I'm not a religious person, but there are ancient texts that are just beautiful. The Bible is full of wonderful things that were never meant to be taken literally, as it says in allegories and in mystical sayings and dark sayings. These are unknown sayings. But there are truths in there that people just don't understand, from the bronze to the brass to the gold on the top. These are all talking about moving certain energies up, which is from the earth to the heaven above. And again, one of the old scriptures I like best, which I'm terrible at reciting them, I always was, even back in my Little Trinity days. I hated doing recitations, but anyway, I always got the gist of them. And one was that you cannot take what you hear out there, and it isn't of what you observe, but you'll say, lo here and lo here, but the kingdom of heaven is within. Not about you, not around you, not way out there, it's within. So it's about talking about constant stories and stories, from Adam and Eve to Moses, to the end in Revelations when it talks about the book of life on the right side, on the back of him. That's talking about the spine and the back, and it's talking about moving beautiful powers up, the powers of creation, up the body and into the mind. And I've been there. I've got the experience. So again, I want to take not only my practitioner's experience as a holistic health practitioner, but a practitioner of these ideas. So if I get a little personal, don't take it that way. Just take it as a friend, and hopefully we can learn from each other, maybe, and get past some of these things that are hammered into our minds, that are evil, that are sinful, and all this. Sin is a simple word for being off the mark. Just forget the guilt and think about the beauty of your body temple. I can tell you one thing, unfortunately, ultimately people judge people on these things while they do all the other things with pride, and they do all the other things with destroying their body with drugs, processed food, garbage drink, alcohol, and all the other things, while they can look across the aisle at somebody who is trying to focus on proper, beautiful sexual health. So let's see what we can do. So anyway, sexual transmutation, I just kind of gave a short description of that. Why in the world would anybody do that? Sexual transmutation is basically to get, fortunately in my life, so here's the personal part, fortunately in my life, I have never suffered with, even with congenital heart disease, I've never suffered any sexual issues other than the fact I've always had a very strong drive. So I've needed to work on over time, you know, in my 30s and 40s, even into my 50s, I needed to work on how to not control it where it was out of control, but to take those energies and to move it up to a place where it was beneficial for me when the times weren't right for my wife and I to enjoy those energies together. Good way to put it. And it's something that I've learned, especially I've learned in meditation. So I haven't suffered from I've never suffered from premature ejaculation, and you guys know that, you know, what does that mean? And that can vary a little bit, but you know, that's when a person actually from the beginning of sex, basically, and I'm talking about penetration, it's somewhere around the order of 2 minutes or less that somebody actually ejaculates, premature ejaculation. And I tell you one thing, there are a lot of things you can do to remedy that. And for those that are thinking, why would I want to? Well, 95% of women only have clitoral orgasms. And on average, if I remember the numbers right, on average you're talking about anywhere from 16 to 20 minutes for that to occur. So if you're thinking about yourself and you're just kind of a wham bam, thank you ma'am kind of guy, for one thing, if they are having an orgasm in that period of time, they're probably faking it, just maybe for your sake and they love you that much, but whatever the case, you need to go beyond yourself and do whatever it takes to work on that. Sometimes it's physiological, sometimes it's all about attitude. People just don't care, but it's something that is a powerful thought to keep in mind that it matters. I mean, it matters for good relationships, it matters for your peace of mind, it matters for discipline, it matters for good health. So I'll go on again for sexual transmutation. It's been something that's been around since the beginning of time. I mean, from the story of Moses to the story of, you know, who are some of the Tesla to others. That's what they practice. Einstein, they practice using that sexual energy and bringing it up and getting brilliant things done, whether they be a story, an allegory, or in reality. It's powerful advice. So I'll move on past that a little bit. I'll go on to seminal retention or semen retention. And in short, basically what does that mean? And semen retention just means to not ejaculate. And does that mean that you can't have an orgasm? Absolutely not. That does not mean that. And you can learn that through practice and through giving a lot of mindful thought about when you are making love or whatever is occurring and you're about ready to ejaculate, that you stop and you learn how to do that. It takes practice, you know. It's not something that just happens overnight, but first you got to start with the mind and to say that, yeah, you're worth it and your lover is worth it, to be able to learn how to stop that. It's not always necessary, and there is plenty of science that says that ejaculation is good and more often, because I've been preaching this for many years, you know, is to ejaculate plenty, because that's one of the things that, you know, you get the old out and you get the new in. One of the problems there that happens and occurs that worldwide, and we'll say especially in the United States and in the West, so many people have such poor diets that you can go ahead and get rid of that ejaculate and sperm and whatnot, but when you're replacing all those nutrients that are in there, which are plenty, when you replace that with nothing but garbage and deficiencies, you got problems either way. But yes, I mean, I'm not saying to practice seminal retention all the time. For me, when I do my fasting and I practice a sacred secretion every month, that's one of the things that I will do. And yes, you can absolutely have an orgasm, a physical orgasm, and energy orgasms with the rest of your body without actually ejaculating. So it's something that it does take practice, but you can do it. And I'll say Mantak Chia is a great practitioner of that. He's been teaching that to hundreds of thousands for many years. So take a look, check out Mantak Chia. He's got a lot of videos online. He's written a lot of books, a lot of excellent books. But he knows his stuff, and he's kind of a fun guy. And then we'll go over to, again, why in the world would somebody do that? Body, mind, and spirit, of course. Physically, you're talking about be able to control the pelvic floor, which is great for urinary issues down the line, to have that kind of control and have that strength. It's quite critical. And obviously for me, one of the reasons that I love doing it, not only for my spiritual end of it and meditation, is because you guys know, and all too many women know, that the guy, once he ejaculates, oftentimes, again, fortunately I've never had that problem. I've been too wired up. But oftentimes when men ejaculate, they get that oxytocin bang and they're ready to fall asleep. So for me to be able to hold that when I need it most, for whatever time of the year, whatever time of the season is, for whatever reasons is going on in my life, when I need that energy most, that's a prime time for me to consider seminal retention for me and somebody that's dealt with congenital heart disease most of my life. As a very personal note, as somebody who has had congenital heart disease and a lot of security issues because of that, I've been very blessed in my life. I've had wonderful relationships and whatever else, but I could say when I was younger, I thought I over-focused on how to please in whatever way that might be, and that could have been to try to please my family, my parents, which I got wonderful parents, but it was just one of those things that I suffered a lot from congenital heart disease, and one of the things that I could do in relationships was to focus highly on that sexual pleasure and do what I could, and sometimes it maybe was a little too much. It was always beautiful as it should be and can be, but it's easy to get your mind focused on something that overwhelms you, and that's where it becomes a problem. Sex is not a problem; it's a beautiful thing. Making love is not a issue. It's a wonderful thing. That's creation in and of itself. What's a problem is when it gets out of control and it overtakes your life. So everything you do, you got to think about sex, going out to the bar, I got to have a drink, I got to, whatever it is. These are the things that can help you overcome that. So as far as the mind part, that security, and that's one of the things what I'm just talking about now, is the amazing security that you can get out of learning how to first use that sexual transmutation. So when you have that energy and you have that feeling of whatever, call it horniness, call it whatever you want, that you do what you can, stop, and just try to take that energy and make it flow up. It takes time again. It's a matter of first starting out that you're worth it and your lover is worth it. To do something far more than just the physical, to take those sexual experiences and bring it into the spiritual and into the mental. And that's where, as I said in the scripture before, that's in great part where your heaven will occur, right here on earth. I guarantee it, I promise it. The other thing is, again, the spirit, when you talk about giving and the creative power and that power to overcome. When you start being able to do these things, you're talking about a powerful discipline very few men have. I personally don't know anybody that does what I do, and maybe they wouldn't want to, but if they had the experiences I've had for years now in practicing this, they couldn't imagine not living that way. And they couldn't imagine not being able to give that to their lover. And I'm not talking about doing drugs and drinking a whole pile and all of a sudden becoming Don Juan. I'm talking about something where you're a naturally healthy, strong person without all the stuff, because I choose not to do the drugs and the alcohol and the processed foods and stuff like that. And even with severe congenital heart disease, even with dealing with heart failure, I suffer none of those issues. And that can be for you too. Again, it's mind over matter. Premature ejaculation, that's one of those things that I've worked with quite a few guys have discussed with that with me. And that's no joke, because not only is it a little bit heartbreaking for the man, but it's also something that most people would totally accept a guy that has those issues, but you don't have to suffer that, because I do know, even though I've never suffered anything remotely close to that, I do know that there are some things that can either enhance your sensitivities or reduce those. But I'm only going to talk about one or two. I won't get into the horny goat weed and all the other things that Tonka Alley and all the other things that can be very effective and for different things in different ways. I'm just going to kind of focus on niacin for a little bit, because it's easy to use, it's very inexpensive, but very oftentimes, and this rarely gets addressed, you might have seen shows on it where people, they just, premature ejaculation, but even for women, where they're just standing there, and great for them for a while, but they'll have an orgasm like out of nowhere, and it gets to be where it's so often that it's totally uncomfortable, and it's virtually very hard to live with. And like so many things that are misunderstood today, from mental health disorders, depression, all these other things, histamine is huge when it comes to sexual health. No, you don't have proper histamine, you simply can't get it up, or the erectile tissue on the clitoris will not work properly either, because as we know, the clitoris is just basically a small penis. That's how it works. That's how it works from fetal development onward. So that's one of those things that when you're talking about when an erection occurs, that is a histamine reaction. There's hormones and everything obviously involved, but it cannot happen without histamine. And when it happens too fast, especially ejaculation, that's a time to very strongly consider the niacin I always talk about. Now, yeah, you might get a flush with it if you just do the regular nicotinic acid, the niacin, but that's okay. Start out with small doses, maybe 50 milligrams, 100 milligrams, 200, and go up as you go. As I've said, the book by Abram Hoffer, Niacin, he was the king of niacin, and he's done amazing work from schizophrenia to everything under the sun, including this, in dealing with niacin. So when you talk about histamine, and you have those issues of premature ejaculation, please consider looking up histamine intolerance. But I can tell you from experience working with others, and I can tell you just for myself, like I said, I've been very blessed that way. If I decide that I'm gonna use the seminal retention, again, it doesn't mean you don't get to orgasm. That comes in time and practice, and it certainly doesn't mean you don't have sex anymore. It just simply means that you don't ejaculate, and you can have sex again and again and again and again, and you can have it more than once and twice and 3 times, within a short period of time, because you're not ejaculating. So you have that ability to do that, if that's what you choose. Again, if you choose not to have it at all, that's where the sexual transmutation and the seminal retention comes in very powerfully. Ultimately, for me, again, I want to make my wife as happy as I can, but it's also something, and again, I also need that for energy, just in general. But bottom line is, more than anything, to me, it's a spiritual, not a religious, a spiritual thing. We're talking about energies, and I'm just talking about meditation. It's a very powerful thing to use. So, I'll go back to, one of the things that, again, for those that know a little bit of scripture there, in the old Hebrew text, they talk about losing the seed and spilling the seed on the ground. Well, people talking about, that's a sign of, death by masturbation or whatever the heck it may be. But bottom line is, you think about the fact that it has to do with the power of creation and throwing that away. So when you may not want to think that as something that's so a precious fluid, but it isn't something to be thrown away. Yeah, you can forget about it. It's gone. It's out with a condom or whatever you got to do. And for me, again, I'll go back to the sensitivities and stuff. Many people like myself don't like prophylactics at all, and I've never practiced that, because there's other ways of getting around pregnancy and stuff like that. Obviously, whether it's a calendar, whether it's, there's a lot of different ways, or whether it's withdrawal, whatever, you decide what's best for you, or simply seminal retention, where you can actually squeeze those muscles, where you simply don't ejaculate, but you still have the orgasm. And that's powerful, it's beautiful. But the key is that's life. Look at everybody around you. You know, like it or not, they started out with a sperm cell and they started out with an egg. So it's not something to be taken lightly. So you can, most people do, but when you're talking about spiritual power, when you're talking about a real love of yourself, your body temple, and those you're intimately involved with in that way, they're very powerful things to consider. So I think on that note, I'm going to stop. Actually, like usual, I always think of something afterwards, but so Montauk Chi is a great one to look at some of the videos. Sadhguru, he's one of my favorites. He's anyway, you just look him up. Sadhguru's got a lot to say about seminal retention and different things like that that are really helpful as far as into meditation. Neville Goddard is one of my favorites over the years, and just look up the 2 videos about sacred secretion by Kelly Marie Kerr and John St. Julian. I love those guys, especially John St. Julian. What a sweetheart of a guy. Does amazing work for the very least of these. And consider getting it done. So if you're suffering from PME, premature ejaculation, strongly consider starting out with small doses of straight niacin, 50, 100 milligrams, and see if that helps you. And then go on, take the steps further, and maybe try that sexual transmutation. That can be done wherever you stand, whether you're at work or whether you're in the vehicle or whether you're at home. You simply do, you have those little tingles, and guy or girl, and just do what you can to think and to move that up. And if that's the time you get to make love and you get to enjoy that, well then great. If it's not, learn how to do that and make it a power that you go to, that heaves up, which is what heaven means, that heaves up to the heaven above. Okay, hopefully that was helpful to somebody. Don't be shy, please. Let's make this a conversation if we can. You know, if you got something that you write in comments, hopefully I've got that set up where I can actually accept comments, but you know, give me some ideas, or you can talk about your experiences openly. Or if you have questions you think I might be able to answer, I'll do what I can. Again, don't be shy. Life is way too short, and you know, I spent a lot of time, I'm very blessed with my past, but I spent a lot of time mulling over those things in the past. It just ain't worth it. Just get on with your life, find that kingdom of heaven within right now, and make it as beautiful as you can, inside it and outside. Okay, see you guys. Thanks.